The Instagram post loaded on my screen. My sister, beaming, a champagne flute in hand, her other arm around our father. The caption, "Big dreams need big believers. So grateful for my amazing support system. #funded #new beginnings." The tagged location was the steakhouse where my meeting was supposed to be. My phone felt like a block of ice in my hand. In the photo, my dad's smile was wide, uncomplicated, proud. I sat in the silent, dark office I'd built from scratch. The business plan for our idea, sat open on my desk. The meeting had happened, just not with me. The ask was a lifetime in the making, but I finally made it. For 2 years, I've been building my company, a curated subscription box for home bakers. I'd done everything myself: product sourcing, packaging design, the website, the social media. I'd funded it with my savings and a small business loan that still kept me up at night. It was breaking even, but to scale, to actually become sustainable, I needed an injection of capital, about $150,000. Enough to secure a bulk contract with a flour mill and hire one part-time employee. My father played golf every Tuesday with Martin Vogel. Everyone in our town knew who Martin was, a venture capitalist who'd made his money in early tech and now dabbled in local startups. My father mentioned him often, a name dropped casually to signal his own proximity to success. Over a painfully quiet family dinner, my hands still dusty with powdered sugar from that day's test batches, I asked. I laid out my business plan, my metrics, my projections. I spoke clearly, slowly fighting the tremor in my voice. "Dad, you know Martin Vogel. Would you be willing to introduce me? Just an introduction. I'll do all the rest." He chewed his roast beef, looking at my folder like it was a flyer for a school bake sale. My sister Chloe scrolled through her phone, uninterested. "Martin's a very busy man," my dad said finally, wiping his mouth. "His time is valuable." "I know. That's why an introduction from you would mean so much. It would get me 5 minutes of that valuable time." He nodded slowly, a performative ponder. "Let me think about the best way to approach it. I can't just hit him up out of the blue. It has to be natural." That was the beginning of the refusal. A slow, polite strangulation by delay. For 6 weeks I followed up, gently, every Sunday phone call. "Any thoughts on that Martin Vogel intro, Dad?" "Oh, kiddo, we haven't had our regular tea time. The weather's been foul." Then, I mentioned it in passing. "He's swamped right now. Q4, you know." Then the week before Thanksgiving, "I've got it on my list. Be patient." The Tuesday before the meeting that would never be mine, he called. His voice was uncharacteristically brisk. "Got you a slot. This Friday, 1 p.m. at the Oak Room. Martin's got a gap. Don't be late." I remember the fizzy electric joy that shot through me. I thanked him, my voice cracking. I spent 3 days refining my pitch. I printed fresh copies of my business plan on heavy paper. I rehearsed in front of the mirror. The pattern, of course, was ancient history. I just hadn't wanted to read the book. When I was 17 and needed a new calculus textbook, it was an unexpected expense. When Chloe, 15, wanted the same brand of jeans her friends had, they appeared the next day. My first car was a dented Honda Civic with 100,000 miles already on it. "It'll build character," Dad said. Chloe's first car, 2 years later, was a sporty 2-year-old Volkswagen. We want her to be safe. I was the practical one, the reliable one, the one who didn't need the shiny things because I was made of tougher stuff. My needs were presented as burdens to be managed. Chloe's desires were treasures to be fulfilled. That Friday, I put on my one good blazer. I was at the Oak Room at 12:45 p.m., sitting at the bar with a water, my portfolio neat beside me. By 1:15 p.m., a cold knot had formed in my stomach. By 1:30 p.m., I texted my dad, "Is Mr. Vogel running late?" No response. I called his phone. It went straight to voicemail. I paid for my water. The bartender gave me a pitying look. I drove back to my office, the unopened portfolio on the passenger seat. The silence in the car was absolute. That's when I opened Instagram. That's when I saw the post. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I placed the fresh business plan in the bottom drawer of my desk. I closed the drawer. The realization was simple. A flat, cold fact: my father was not a gatekeeper to my success. He was the wall. The betrayal wasn't an event. It was a catalog. I started flipping through the mental file of my life, and every tab had Chloe's name on it. When we were kids, I made the state science fair with a project on soil pH. My dad had a big work thing the day of the presentation. The following year, Chloe performed in her middle school chorus spring concert, one song in a group of 60. He rented a professional-grade video camera. We have hours of shaky footage of her speck in the distance. At my college graduation, he was on his phone during the ceremony, dealing with what he called a client crisis. At her graduation from a 6-week digital marketing certificate program, he took her and 3 friends out for a multi-course dinner. 3 years ago, I mentioned I was looking to buy a house. The market was fierce. You need to be ready to move fast. Have your financing airtight, he'd advised, then changed the subject. Last year, Chloe casually said she was browsing condos. Within a week, he had set her up with his mortgage broker and driven her to 3 viewings. I was the practice child, the prototype. She was the limited edition release. The erasure moved to the present tense. The family group chat, once a sporadic thread, became active with planning for Chloe's launch party. Links to venues, caterers, playlist ideas. My mom asked, "Can you make those mini quiches you do? The ones everyone likes?" My role confirmed: catering. I scrolled back through the chat history. My messages, updates on my business, a funny article about sourdough starters were often the last in a thread, followed by silence. Then, a new thread would spark to life about Chloe's new car or her vacation plans. I saw a tagged photo on Facebook from a cousin's wedding. My parents, Chloe, her boyfriend, all smiling, arms linked. I was at that wedding. I'd brought the gift. I'd driven our grandmother home, but in the narrative of the family, I had been cropped out. The shift happened in the grocery store. I was in the baking aisle comparing prices on vanilla extract. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom in the family chat, a news article about the rise of cottage food industries. "Look at this, Chloe. So relevant to your new venture." I put the phone back in my pocket. I picked up the cheaper vanilla. I didn't cry in the aisle. I just felt a deep, weary click, like a final bolt sliding home. I stopped trying to insert myself into the text chain. Instead, I took a screenshot. Then I opened a new blank document on my computer. I titled it Notes. I pasted the screenshot. I added the date. I wasn't collecting ammunition. I was collecting proof for myself that I hadn't imagined the silence. The ask came 8 weeks after the funding announcement. It was my mother. Her voice a careful blend of concern and demand. "Chloe's feeling overwhelmed with the fulfillment side of the business. The packaging, the shipping, the labels. It's so much for one person." I waited. I watched a rain slide down my office window. "We were thinking you have such a good system. You're so organized, and you know the product so well, obviously." A nervous laugh. "Maybe you could just help her get set up? Show her your process? It would just be for a little while." The audacity was breathtaking. They wanted me to build the infrastructure for the business they had stolen from me, to become the unpaid operations manager for my own idea. My father's text came through a minute later, as if on cue. "Think of it as a family collaboration. Could be a nice bonding experience for you girls." I looked at the text. I looked at the notes document open on my screen, now pages long. I thought of the flour dust on my hands, the late nights, the business plan in the drawer. I typed my reply to the group thread. 3 words. "I can't do that." The reaction was immediate, a sputtering digital firework. "My mother, what do you mean you can't? It would just be a few days." "My father, this is petty. We're trying to include you." Chloe, I never asked for this drama. Forget I mentioned anything. Then the guilt shift. My mother, privately. She's your sister. Family helps family. After everything we've done for you? My father, privately. You're letting your jealousy destroy this family. I didn't justify. I didn't argue. I didn't defend. I didn't explain. I opened the settings for the family group chat. I tapped mute. I then went to each of their individual contact cards. I selected block this caller. The silence that replaced the buzzing was solid. A wall I had built, brick by brick with their own words. They weren't asking for my help. They were asking for my complicity. The silence wasn't a punishment for them. It was oxygen for me. Months passed. I didn't hear a word. No calls to check in, no emails. Their silence was the final confirmation of my theory. My value had been conditional on my usefulness. Now that I was neither a compliant daughter nor a free consultant, I was obsolete. I heard things, though. The town gossip mill is a slow, reliable system. My friend Mia, who works at the bank, told me. Chloe's business, the Artisan Baker's Crate, a name I found painfully generic, was floundering. The $400,000 was gone faster than anyone imagined, spent on a fancy office lease she didn't need, overly expensive packaging, and a launch party that looked good on Instagram. The subscription numbers were a ghost town. Martin Vogel was reportedly disappointed and disengaged. My father had called in every favor to get that meeting. He had spent his social capital, and it had evaporated. I didn't feel happy hearing this. I felt a dull thud of inevitability, like hearing a forecast for rain you already saw coming. My own path diverged. Without the hope of my father's help, I got creative. I applied for and won a small but prestigious grant for women-led food businesses. I formed a co-op with 3 other local home baker startups to bulk order supplies, slashing our costs. It was slower, harder, but it was mine. I hired a college student part-time, a sharp kid named Leo who believed in spreadsheets as much as sourdough. I ran into my father at the hardware store 9 months after the Oak Room. He was in line ahead of me, buying a single light bulb. He looked older, thinner. He turned and saw me. His eyes widened, then darted away, then back, caught. "Hey," he said. The word was rusted. "Hello," I said. My voice was pleasant, the way you speak to an acquaintance. He fumbled with the light bulb in its cardboard sleeve. "I hear you're doing okay." "I am." Chloe's venture, it didn't pan out. He said it like a confidential diagnosis. "I'm sorry to hear that." A long pause. The line moved. He didn't. He looked at me, really looked, as if searching for the daughter he knew, the one who would soothe him, who would ask for details, who would absorb his disappointment. He found a polite stranger. "You know," he said quietly, almost to himself, "I thought she was the safer bet." I met his gaze. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I just nodded, as if he'd commented on the weather. "Goodbye, Dad." I paid for my items. I walked to my car. I didn't look back. Revenge would have meant I was still playing their game on their board. I had quietly built my own table, in another room, and closed the door. The real victory wasn't their failure. It was my peace, and it was finally, irrevocably, non-negotiable.